That's Ellen. Tomorrow at 4 on KOIN News 6.
K2, the spirit of the Northwest.
This week, America's blue chip automakers on their way to the junk heap.
Well, I think they're going to have to learn to compete. Things are scary at Ford and GM.
Can General Motors and Ford survive? Can our economy survive without them? We'll ask our headliner, America's CEO, Jack Welch. Plus, a surge of violence in Iraq kills 300 in one of the bloodiest weeks of the war. This as North Korea threatens to test a nuclear bomb. Two challenges for two foreign policy heavyweights, Republican Chuck Hagel and Democrat Carl Levin. Our classic This Week Roundtable is back. George Will, Cokie Roberts, and Sam Donaldson. So are the Sunday Funnies, plus Mother's Day on the front lines. And Jerry Lewis joins our ABC News series on chronic pain. Relief after 37 years.
To the king, and I'm stimulating. It also opens my garage door.
From ABC News, This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Now reporting from the ABC News studios in Washington, George Stephanopoulos.
Good morning, everyone. It was a little over 50 years ago when the president of GM told Congress, what's good for our country is good for General Motors, and vice versa. But if that maxim still holds, it was not a good week for the country, because it was a very bad week for General Motors. Here's our business correspondent, Betsy Stark, with the backstory.
It was another grim milestone for the American auto industry. The credit rating of General Motors and Ford downgraded to junk in the same week that Toyota reported its best monthly car sales ever. The news kept a run of disappointments, including plummeting sales of SUVs, shrinking market share, and for GM, a $1.1 billion first quarter loss, its worst showing in more than a decade.
GM's inability to produce cars and trucks that are really hits with the American public is the root of all the problems.
But GM and Ford have another big problem, spiraling pension and health care costs for millions of workers and retirees. GM estimates that paying its workers' health benefits adds $1,500 to the cost of every car.
That's incredible when you think about it, because the steel in a vehicle is only $800. Healthcare costs are quickly getting to the point where they cost twice as much as the steel in a car.
And that's not likely to change anytime soon, because those benefits are guaranteed by a union contract that does not expire until 2007.
You simply cannot compete against Toyota if you run at that kind of disadvantage.
And the potential fallout doesn't stop there. If Washington has to take on the burden of the industry's multi-billion-dollar pension plans, taxpayers could feel the pain too. For This Week, I'm Betsy Stark in New York.
And we're joined now from Fairfield, Connecticut by Jack Welch. He is, of course, the former head of General Electric and the author of a new book called Winning with his wife, Susie Welch. Mr. Welch, thank you for joining us. Let's get right to the bottom line. Is General Motors dying?
Well, it's in serious trouble, and there's got to be some real action taken on both sides here.
When you say action taken on both sides, if you were in charge of General Motors right now, what would you do?
Well, I think Rick Wagner's going to take care of that. He inherited a bunch of legacy costs and a bunch of decisions made over a long period of time, and he's now got to deal with a cost structure that's unacceptable, just as the airlines had to. I mean, if you go back, George, and look at the airline problems, this is absolutely the same thing. And we're going to see the same result if we don't get compromise early from the unions.
When you say compromise early from the unions, of course, you want them to compromise on health care. Right now, GM, as Betsy Stark pointed out in her piece, is starting out about $1,500 behind their competitors from Japan because of health care costs. Is there any way to make that up?
Well, health care is more than the cost of steel in a car right now, and there's got to be some issue where there's some sharing by employees so that better decisions are made on health care. There's just got to be compromise. I'm not sure I know the exact architecture here, but this thing is bleeding badly. And take a look at United. Take a look at the problems at Delta. Take a look at all these legacy airlines. This is a legacy issue that has to be dealt with firmly.
But when you look at Korea, when you look at Japan, when you look at Germany, every one of those nations has national health care. Can American manufacturing survive if we don't have some sort of national health care system?
George, this is not just health care. This is a question of work rules where if you with that limit productivity, it's a question of when you've closed a plant down, you owe 95% of the cost of a person. These were costs negotiated in a time of little competition. And this situation can't go on. So it's not a question of health care. You can have health care. Most companies have prosperous health care plans. They're just not unreasonable cost burdens all over the system. United, Delta, look at Eastern, all these airlines had the same exact issue. Costs negotiated in a regulated industry, deregulated. Here, costs negotiated in a time of no foreign competition. Now you're living with them. You got to deal with them, or you're going to have the same result.
Some analysts have looked at that same set of facts and say the only way that General Motors is going to be able to get out of this is to eventually file bankruptcy. That's the only way they're going to be able to get out from under these labor contracts, the only way they're going to be able to get out from under these dealer contracts, and this would also allow them to pass some of those pension obligations onto the federal government. Is bankruptcy the answer?
Well, I don't think it's the answer. Hopefully it isn't, because no one wins in a bankruptcy. Employees lose many of their benefits. It's just not a win. But the unions have to come to the party. They can't just throw up their hands and say no negotiation. This is an issue that has to be dealt with, and both sides have to do something. Maybe you can get a prepackaged deal where you give some equity to the employees early on, and in return they give some concessions. It's got to be both sides giving something here.
You know, Reverend Pat Robertson was on the program last week, and he said that the out-of-control federal judiciary is the greatest threat America has ever faced. What do you think is the biggest threat facing America right now?
Well, I think we clearly have a competitive threat. I mean, healthy companies are what, in fact, drive this country. And some of these countries are under tremendous import pressure. They're under tremendous squeeze. And I think the judiciary is just one element in competitiveness. I don't think it's the biggest one.
Others have looked at the future, and this is all coming out against the backdrop of course, rising gas prices and pretty high oil prices over the course of this year. A Goldman Sachs analyst has looked into the future 2 or 3 years out and said supply has peaked, Asian demand is going to continue to go strong, and we're looking in the next few years at a range of $70 to $80 a barrel for oil. It could even spike up to $100 a barrel if there's some kind of a terrorist strike. How much does that worry you as a former CEO?
Well, I'm not an oil forecaster. Everyone has a different forecast. George, this economy is in general in great shape. Unemployment's under control. We just created more jobs. I've just come back from visiting 23 schools. People are starting up new businesses everywhere. This glass is more than half full. Stop wringing hands. I mean, we got to stop wringing hands and take charge of this thing. I took charge of GE in 1980 when the prime rate was 23.5, and the Japanese were going to take over the world. So, I mean, we're going through a period here now where things aren't bad, and everyone is wringing their hands. We got to deal with our issues, deal with them hard on. China is a real issue. We got to continue to press for some concessions there in the currency. We got to keep working hard, but this is a good economy, George.
What about President Bush's Social Security reform? You talk about people wringing their hands. That economic anxiety seems to have really stalled the president's push for reform. Do you think it's just asking people to bear too much risk in this market?
No, I think the president is now just getting his arms around it. He was out asking questions before, and now he's giving people a vision, exactly what he wants to do. When the president outlines the benefits of an ownership society and people having a stake in their own decision-making, he ought to be able to sell this plan. I mean, why would you want a plan that the day you die, you throw it all away? It's gone. Why wouldn't you have a plan where you invest, and if you pass on, your heirs are able to get it? I mean, Social Security has some problems, and the idea of your own investing is a very good idea.
Then why do you think the president's having so much trouble?
Because he didn't start out with a clear-cut vision as he had on most things. He's gone around and asked for suggestions and opinions, but I think he's zeroing in now, and I think you'll get some movement into private accounts by the end of the year.
I know you're a supporter of the president, but I want to show a poll on the Democratic side. Just came out from the Marist Institute yesterday. It shows Hillary Clinton leading the pack, 40%, against John Kerry, 18%, John Edwards, 16%, Joe Biden, 7%, Wesley Clark, 4%. She's way ahead. Do you think Hillary Clinton would be a good president?
Well, I think the country will decide that, not me.
But I want to know what you think.
Well, I think she's a very capable woman. I've seen every decision she's made. She's moving more to the center. She's positioning herself very well, and we'll see.
And who's your choice on the Republican side?
Well, my own choice would be Jeb Bush, but I don't know if he's interested in running.
Sounds like he's not. Mr. Welch, thank you very much.
George, thanks a lot for having me.
Coming up, Senators Chuck Hagel and Carl Levin weigh in on Iraq and North Korea. And later, Jerry Lewis on the pain that pushed him to the brink of suicide.
My pain came from more than 70 years of taking falls. And my first fall I took, I was 5 years old. I never stopped falling since.
This week with George Stephanopoulos. Brought to you by IBM, helping companies innovate in an on-demand world.
What's this? That's a blade. Blade? What's a blade? Blade's a server. This is a server? That's a server. Where's all the stuff? Stuff? What stuff? The plugs, the cables, you know. In the Blade Center? Blade Center. Where you put the blades. What's a blade? You're messing with me, right?
Highly simplified, affordable IBM eServer Blade Center with Intel Xeon processors.
Excuse me, you're still with your old brokerage firm?
I know, but I like being able to talk to somebody when I have a question.
Look, I don't want to be out there in cyberspace all by myself.
We moved our money to a TD Waterhouse online account. Their people really make us feel connected.
TD Waterhouse has investment consultants you can talk to when you have a question, so you're not out there all on your own. You can do this. Switch to TD Waterhouse, the alternative to higher-priced brokers like Merrill Lynch and Smith Barney.
Open the windows. Clear the air. It's time to shed some light on energy. It isn't a dark science. Energy is the power to generate brilliant solutions for your business. Energy is Constellation Energy. And we are ready to show you some very real results.
Tonight,
Give me the good news.
there's only 3 new shows left.
Oh, my God.
And the housewives are cooking.
Anything that good has got to be sinful. Naughty, naughty.
It's so hot.
We haven't had sex in 10 days.
If you don't mind sleeping on the sofa, the sofa should be fine.
You know someone's going to get burned.
I'm pregnant, and it might be yours.
You should come back and work for us. I mean, you're practically family.
On an all-new Desperate Housewives, tonight 9/8 Central, only on ABC.
And we're back with Senator Chuck Hagel, Republican of Nebraska, and Senator Carl Levin, Democrat of Michigan. And let's start with Iraq. I want to show a chart that shows the violence since the new Iraq government was formed on April 28th. 35 major attacks, 300 fatalities. And Senator Levin, there's 2 different theories on what's going on here. One is that these insurgents are on the offense. They are definitely here to stay. The other is that this is something of a last desperate gasp of an increasingly isolated insurgency. What do you think is going on?
Well, I wish it were a last desperate gasp, but I'm afraid it's not. I think there's some fundamental problems there, mainly the remnants of the Ba'athist leadership, very disaffected Sunnis. They're now in the minority. They're very worried about the Shia majority and what will be in that constitution and whether that constitution will protect minority rights. And then you've got, of course, the Shia who are now in the majority, been elected to run the assembly, and they want to have the power of a majority. So I think there's some fundamental clashes politically, and that is just as big a challenge as the security situation is. But we should not kid ourselves. as to the difficulty that we're in. We get some of the numbers from the administration as to how many trained and equipped Iraqis there are. It goes up every week by a couple thousand more. It's up to 168,000. There are no more than a quarter of that are able and willing to take on the insurgents.
So if that's true, Senator Hagel, and we also learned this week that Japan and Bulgaria are going to be leaving at the end of the year. 24 countries have now said that they're going to be leaving the coalition by the end of the year. If you've got these security forces that aren't up to speed, if you've got other countries leaving the coalition, should the American people expect that we're going to need this 140,000 or so troops in Iraq well into next year?
We don't know, George. Not unlike what Carl has just said. Carl and I both serve on the Intelligence Committee. We don't have really good intelligence as to what's driving the insurgency, who is really behind it, who is coordinating it.
How can that be, though?
Well, it's complicated. You've got so many different factors, and Carl talked about some of them. You've got outside influences. You've got Al-Qaeda. You've got a nationalism that's on the rise. You've got the former Baathists still involved. We don't know how it's being coordinated, how it's being financed, and if, in fact, it is being coordinated. And every day that goes by, it will get more complicated because there will be a stream of nationalism that will continue to strengthen and develop. Where that goes, no one can be sure. But to your question, George, you can't sustain these policies indefinitely, whether it's the United States or any other country. And the answer is going to be, ultimately, as it always has been in every one of these throughout history, it'll be the people of Iraq who will ultimately determine the outcome of that country. Now, we can do what we want. I don't know I don't know, George. I think we've got less time than maybe some believe that we can, in fact, shape and mold. We're in the shaping and molding process, and we've been in that at the last 2 years. But you get to a point of diminishing returns, and then the Iraqi people, now the Iraqi independently elected government, is taking over, writing that constitution, and it will be that government that will have the responsibility to govern. And that's the point of why we were there.
Senator Hagel points out that we can't sustain this policy indefinitely. There was more evidence of that this week. General Myers, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, sent up a classified assessment to Congress that said because of our deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, we can still prevail in another conflict, say in North Korea, but it's going to cost more, it's going to require more casualties, more collateral damage. How much longer can we afford to stay in Iraq?
Well, it's obvious that what he said is true. It's just common sense that we're so involved in Iraq and Afghanistan that we cannot sustain a significant effort early, promptly, in other places. That's common sense. I'm glad he acknowledged it. At least it's an honest acknowledgement by a top military officer, and we welcome that. We've had, frankly, too little of that kind of hard public thinking on the part of our leadership. I think that the Iraq effort cannot be sustained beyond the time limit for Iraq to write a constitution.
That's the end of this year.
Well, it's next January 15th if they get an extension. One extension they allowed themselves by their own administrative law. So by early January next year, I think we will know whether Iraq wants to become a country, whether they want to walk through that door that we have opened for them. And if they don't want to walk through that door, or they can't walk through that door, or their own security forces cannot provide security for them, at that point, it seems to me, if there's no constitution agreed upon by the Iraqi people by early next year, it seems to me that then we have to rethink our presence.
Do you agree with that?
I think that frames it up pretty well, George. Again, you're dealing with the dynamic of uncontrollables here, which you always eventually get into that zone. And you get to that point where you can't control it anymore. Because it is, again, I say, ultimately the people of that country will make a determination. Whether it's Vietnam, every one of these conflicts throughout history has been determined ultimately. Morocco, where Algeria, wherever you want to go, it has been determined by the people. And we can buy some time to help assist framing that free government and independent operation of democracy and opportunities, but we can't go beyond that. The other part of it is the world is now so vastly different with this diffusion of not only economic power, we're seeing that in the General Motors issue, but also military diplomatic power. Tom Friedman writes about it in his book, A Flat New World. It is a different world. That's the great challenge of our time for America, is our competitive position in the world and understanding this great diffusion of new power. The United States is no longer the dominant power on Earth as we have been the last 60 years. That's good news, I think, for us.
And another challenge is dealing with the proliferation of nuclear weapons. We saw more evidence this week that North Korea may be preparing to test a nuclear weapon. And Senator Levin, I know you believe that the administration approach, these six-party talks, no direct talks with North Korea, has failed. But isn't it wishful thinking to believe at this point that direct talks with North Korea are going to make any difference? Haven't they decided to build these nuclear weapons and eventually to test them?
They may have decided that. We don't know, but there's no harm in having direct talks in addition to the six-party talks. This isn't an either-or situation, George. The administration says we have to work with our allies to work out a common strategy. Of course we do. That's a given. But that's no reason not to have direct talks with North Korea. We have direct talks with a lot of other places that we have totally disagreed with. We had direct talks with the Soviet Union.
But I'm just wondering, what can happen in these direct talks? North Korea is moving forward. They've been moving forward for a dozen years. There were direct talks during the 1990s. Aren't we going to have to learn to live with a nuclear North Korea?
Well, I hope not. I hope that we can persuade them in some way not to go that road. You know, down that road, we urge China to have one-on-one discussions with North Korea. But we're not willing to engage in one-on-one discussions. And if you are asking what is the outcome of those one-on-one discussions, I do not know whether they'll produce anything useful or not. But there is no excuse not to engage in direct face-to-face negotiations, forget negotiations, discussions with the North Koreans, particularly when our own allies, the South Koreans, want us to do that, when China has urged us to do that. Why not engage in the one-on-one discussions on the chance that it might do some good?
Senator Hagel, many people are skeptical of the chances, and you've already heard some talk in and around the administration of the possibility of a quarantine of North Korea. Would you support that?
Well, I wouldn't give an answer until I knew what all the facts and the dynamics and whether it was an international quarantine, whether it was UN-sponsored, whether our allies were with us. There are a lot of dynamics. But picking up on a point that Carl made, I think he's right on this, that we've got to come at this a little more imaginatively than we have. I don't think the United States can stand outside the ring on these negotiations, whether it's with North Korea or Iran, and then have our surrogate partners in there working directly.
Do you see any evidence that the administration is going to move on this point?
I don't know. I've not spoken directly with Secretary Rice about this. I have talked to her about these general issues and specific issues, but not this one particular point. But the other problem we have in North Korea is we don't have good intelligence there. Again, this is the most closed society in the world, and we're kind of flying blindly in some ways. We have good satellite intelligence and so on, but it is still personal. The personal relationship, and the Chinese have been important here. But I go back to the last fundamental on all these things. This is why our coalitions, our alliances, our friends are absolutely so necessary as we move into this new century with great hope, but also with great new challenges. And we cannot alone deal with these issues.
Let me turn some issues closer to home. Everyone has been embroiled in this controversy over John Bolton, the president's nominee for UN ambassador. And Senator Hagel, you've been on that fence for a long, long time. Have you seen anything, and there's been now 2 more weeks of discovery so far, that would keep you from voting for him?
No, I've not seen anything that would keep me from voting for him, but I have said I will reserve that vote until I hear all the facts.
But it would take something new now to push you away from voting for him.
Well, new from what I know now, but I don't know everything now. As you know, our committee, both Republican and Democratic staff, have been working on this for 2 weeks. We're going to be meeting Thursday, I think almost all day Thursday, to listen to the results of those examinations and those interviews, and then we're going to vote, as we should. But I know nothing as of this moment that would, my guess is, it would stop him from being voted out.
And Senator Levin, the possible showdown between the Democrats and Republicans in the Senate over whether or not to change the Senate rules to prevent a filibuster of judicial nominees. One possible compromise that's been discussed is for the Democrats to say, let there be a debate on the president's 7 nominees and reserve the right to filibuster, but take off the table a filibuster of a Supreme Court nominee. Would you accept that?
No, we should not give up on a principle which has been an absolutely essential part of protecting minority rights and also essential to have any check and balance in this country on the kind of power which this administration has both in the executive and legislative branch. There is no other check and balance other than a filibuster in the Senate. And when other judges have been filibustered, including by Republicans, including a Supreme Court nominee, they have pointed out that this is lifetime positions and that it is more important to have the power to use minority rule, not minority rule, but guarantees of minorities' opportunity to speak at length in the Senate. It is more important to protect that right when it comes to a lifetime appointment than it is even on legislation, because you can change legislation, but you cannot change a lifetime appointment. So this is really a critical issue, and we should not rip up the rule book. We should not try to change the rule by breaking the rule. And we're going to count on some moderate Republicans in the Senate who love the Senate, love the traditions in the Senate, to try to find a way out of this.
We're both smiling now because we both know that Senator Hagel is going to swing vote on this as well. You've been studious about not saying how you're going to vote on this, but have you told Senator Frist, the Republican leader, this is a leadership vote, have you told him that he has your vote if he needs it?
I have had long conversations with Senator Frist, and those are private conversations. I know Senator Frist and Senator Reid both want to work this out. I happen to agree with Carl's general point on the importance of the filibuster. The United States Senate is a minority rights institution unique in the world, and I don't think either side wants to give that up. Now, the other part of this, which I also believe strongly, is that presidents deserve votes on their nominees. Now, the Republicans' hands aren't clean on this either. What we did to Bill Clinton's nominees, about 62 of them, we just didn't give them votes in committee, or we just didn't bring them up. We need to work this through. I think that Frist and Reid can work this through. I don't think it would be wise in the interest of our country or the United States Senate to let this come to this kind of an explosion in the United States Senate. My goodness, you've got 100 United States senators. Some of us might be moderately intelligent enough to figure this out. We would, I think, debase our system and fail our country if we don't do this. But you can't give up a minority rights tool in the interest of the country like the filibuster.
Boy, you are walking through a minefield very delicately.
Yeah.
Senator Hagel.
It's that kind of statement that gives us hope.
Okay, so thank you both very much. When we come back, George Toki and Sam take on Tony Blair's limping win and President Bush's rhetorical showdown with Vladimir Putin. And later, the Sunday Funnies.
See, this is what I love about California. You have an Austrian governor speaking broken English, wishing us happy Cinco de Mayo. You see, that's what makes this country great.
Down in Panama City, Florida, they lay claim to America's best sweet potato bread. And San Diego says it has America's best weather. Well, maybe so. But there is one thing we know for sure. You'll find Alamo's best rates at alamo.com. Guaranteed. There are over 4 million miles of roads in Alamo country. And with our best prices always at alamo.com, they're easy to explore. Alamo, the official rental car of the American vacation.
This Walmart opening has made a difference to a lot of people because this was a community that did need jobs.
When you lose your job, you're lost. Walmart provided 450 jobs.
I think we really changed some lives when we opened this store.
And I'm glad to see that it happened here in Gastonia.
Now that we've built this place from the ground up, it's much closer to our hearts.
It gives us a real good sense of the future. Walmart will be there.
This is the store we needed as much as it needed us.
Thanks to Sprint, ING Direct customers don't have to go to the bank. The bank goes to them. Online or on the phone, ING Direct has been able to give customers reliable, secure access to their accounts with zero service interruptions over the Sprint Peerless IP network. With Sprint, ING Direct is secure, convenient, beautiful. Detailed case studies at sprint.com.
Tonight, when they're not saving lives,
You look like a princess. Do you know you're a princess?
they have to be careful who they're playing doctor with.
This program will make or break our careers. There is a reason we don't sleep with the attendant.
It's not her fault. He's taking advantage of her.
Sorry, I have a sex life.
Don't apologize. Embrace it.
An all-new Grey's Anatomy.
What the hell are you doing? You have their respect without even trying, and you're throwing it away for what?
Tonight, 10/9 Central, after an all-new Desperate Housewives, only on ABC.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos will continue in a moment after this from our ABC stations.
During the day, he saves lives
At night, he's a single father raising 5 kids.
The last thing he's got time to focus on is the house.
Our designers give this family a place they can call home. All new Extreme Makeover Home Edition. Tonight at 8/7 Central, only on ABC.
Watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on K2, and you can win an electronics package and a trip to New York City. It's your chance to win these fabulous prizes. Meet Meredith and go behind the scenes of Millionaire.
Whoa!
Monday, watch for the K2 Trivia Challenge during Millionaire at 4:30 on K2.
Let's do that.
Be the 7th caller with the correct answer, and you'll win a Millionaire prize pack and qualify for our grand prize drawing at AM Northwest.
I can't slip you answers.
Watch Millionaire and play for your chance to win Monday at 4:30 on K2. Go to KTU.com for complete rules.
We just have a great chemistry together. I'll be doing something or saying something, and I think Rhonda knows exactly where I'm going. I'll know exactly where she's going.
Rhonda Shelby and Rod Hill, 2 meteorologists, 1 reason. Weather where you live. K2 News. The difference is local.
You can run around looking at house after house after house, or you can relax. JustListed.com emails you every home you want to see as soon as it's listed. JustListed.com, where your next home finds you.
K2, the spirit of the Northwest.
Once again, George Stephanopoulos.
And we're back with the classic this week roundtable. George Will, Sam Donaldson, Cokie Roberts. Welcome back to all of you. And you saw I was trying to get some specifics out of Jack Welch. Not too successfully, but my takeaway from that, George Will, is that he says, yeah, it's a serious problem, but basically if management and labor get together, it's nothing that can't be solved. This is an awful healthy economy.
Yeah, if we all get together on this. The problem is it's a healthy economy. Car sales are booming, but not for General Motors. General Motors, with 1.1 million workers, retirees, and retirees' dependents, is the largest private health care provider in the country. How did it get into this position? You go back to World War II. We had wage controls. Companies couldn't compete for labor by raising prices, so they did untaxed, hidden compensation of health care. Now, that means, just keep repeating this, health care is compensation. If you take that away, you have to increase by a similar amount plus the taxable component of it in order to keep the workers whole. Are the workers going to be kept whole? In 2007, when this contract comes up, the UAW is going to face this. They're either going to put General Motors out of business or there's going to be some give back.
Well, George, it's not the labor union going to put General Motors and Ford out of business. It's General Motors and Ford if they don't learn to compete against the Japanese automakers. Yes, cost is an important part of it, but innovation also. For instance, my daughter-in-law just bought one of these cars where it runs on a battery, then it runs on an engine, electric engine, and a gasoline engine, all of that. It's wonderful. You get 65 miles a gallon in the city. Now, until our automakers decide that they're going to compete against that kind of innovation, they can blame healthcare costs. We do have to reform our healthcare system in the country generally, but that's not the reason why they go out of business.
I mean, exactly. The young people of my children's generation grew up without American cars. They grew up knowing only foreign cars. With the oil crisis of the 70s, everybody started buying foreign cars, and they were better made. American cars have gotten better, but the public hasn't caught up with that. And then the car companies put all of their eggs in the SUV and light truck basket, and now with oil prices where they are, that's a big problem. And also as the population ages, that's a big problem. It's hard for some of us to get into those SUVs.
All true.
I don't know, Cokie. When I see these huge SUVs bearing down on me, my rearview mirror, it's usually a little old lady behind the wheel.
Go back to George's point, Sam. He says healthcare is compensation. It's also true that if you look at our competitors, Korea, Japan, Germany, it is compensation paid for, subsidized by the government. Is there any way that any major manufacturer can do this on their own?
Not overnight. That's quite true. But over a period of time, innovation and quality will trump the costs because Americans will start buying again.
And, you know, we could do something about executive salaries. I mean, the same day that the junk bonds were declared, that we saw stories in the Wall Street Journal about even more executive perks, executives being paid to live in their own houses. So I think that...
Well, Jack Welch.
Yeah, yes.
Jack Welch, who wants to save Eastern Airlines, if I heard him correctly.
So I think that, you know, there are a lot of different answers here, but the bottom line is that the healthcare problem is going to affect not only every American industry, it's already affecting every American state. All the states are having terrible budgetary problems because of their health care cost under Medicaid, And somewhere along the line, someone's going to have to declare the true crisis right now, and that's healthcare.
Somewhere along the line, you're going to get from big business a push for socialized medicine.
That's exactly right.
Second, we have in our economy now, because of something no American's ever heard of, the Pension Benefits Guaranty Corporation. We have a thing called moral hazard, that is incentives for perverse behavior. Because the government can be talked into taking over pension costs, the companies have no incentive not to make lavish promises that they can't afford to keep. The airlines are doing this now.
And that's what could eventually force GM into the bankruptcy court. But let's turn over to overseas. Tony Blair this week on Thursday won an historic third term for a Labor prime minister, but it was not pretty. And on election day, he did not sound like a man who had a mandate. Watch this.
And I've listened and I've learned. And I think I have a very clear idea of what the British people now expect from this government for a third term.
They really whacked him, Sam. He's off about 100 seats off his high in Parliament. He gets this third term, but inside the Labour Party, they're already saying his time is almost up. He might not last another year.
Right, in the famous saying, more victories like this and we are undone. Clearly, one of the reasons why he has a reduced majority is the disaffection with his desire to take Britain into the war on our side. Well, we like that over here. But the British public didn't like that. And it wasn't just taking Britain into the war, it was fibbing about it. I won't use the word that Michael Howard and others tried to use in the election campaign, but he clearly played fast and loose with some of the truth about why they were going to war. And I think that costs any leader, including Tony Blair.
But keep in mind, he still has a 66 vote
Not too
majority.
bad. That's true.
And you're talking about a parliamentary system in which the prime minister is the dictator, and if you have the majority, you win. And so the idea that he's not going to be able to get through the reforms that he wants to get through is just absurd.
The number of seats he won is in the range that Margaret Thatcher won in 3 elections, so he's hardly impotent.
And the Liberal Democrats agree with him on a lot.
Second, Sam, 3 leaders of English-speaking nations went to war in Iraq. Howard of Australia, Bush of the United States, and Blair of Great Britain, all 3 have been reelected. So much for that issue. The dialectic that's interesting here is Margaret Thatcher, by reforming the trade unions and breaking their hold on the Labour Party, made Tony Blair possible. Mm-hmm. And now Tony Blair, after 3 elections, is going to perhaps, because he's weakened somewhat and in the hands of the more left-wing part of his party, will begin to undo Margaret Thatcher.
But she may be the model. He may follow her fate. The Conservatives threw her out as leader. Threw her out, like they did Winston Churchill a long time ago. And Blair, it looks like, within a year or so, according to the, I don't know, but according to the experts over there, is going to lose his leadership.
George, what happened to the Tories here? Tony Blair was incredibly unpopular. He wasn't that liked in his party. Everyone, as Sam says, was enraged over Iraq, yet they couldn't get anything going.
Well, because the economy is doing well, particularly relative to the rest of the European Union, and because the Labour Party has made, to the left, has made this bargain with him that he'll be their meal ticket to power, the Conservatives were left arguing about law and order, police, and immigration, and those were just not clean.
They make the Democrats look smart, the Conservatives in Britain, and I think that they just are hapless at the moment.
They're hapless, but there was also this undertow, I guess it was actually right up front, of anti-Americanism all throughout this campaign. Will that have any long-term implications for the special relationship?
It could for the relationship with this prime minister and future prime ministers. I think, for instance, if George W. Bush or any future president says, all right, let's go to Iran, let's go to North Korea, follow me, I think a British prime minister won't be able to do it, certainly not as easily as Blair was able to do it on Iraq. I think that's one of the consequences.
But I think that was true already.
But will there be any more pressure? For example, we saw Japan and Bulgaria this week pull out of the coalition. Any more pressure for Britain to start to reduce its presence? We saw also Senator Hagel and Senator Levin say that, starting in January, they're going to start to lose their support.
Exactly. I think that, you're going to see pressure for everybody to reduce their presence.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think President Bush is trying to get out of Iraq as quickly as possible. I think when we hear these explosions, he's going to say that's terrible, but thank goodness they're getting themselves together at the end of this year, unless they have the 6-month extension that they have under law. They'll have that constitution, a new government, and we're going to say, congratulations, you've done it, goodbye.
And you have General Myers' statement this past week that we're overextended and can't go someplace else, and when North Korea is acting the way it is, that's a little unsettling.
Meanwhile, President Bush today and over this weekend is focused on the past. We have some photos of him in the Netherlands earlier today, celebrating the 60th anniversary of the end of World War II, there with Queen Beatrix. And While he's doing that, though, he has gotten into a real war of words with President Putin over whether or not the Soviet Union was an occupier or a liberator of the Baltic nations. And it seems to have, created some real tension between the president and, as he said in his press conference last week, his good friend Vladimir. I think he said Vladimir 12 times.
Yes, into the eyes of his good friend Vladimir, he peered famously and saw a soul that he liked. Well, that's the soul of a product of the thug culture of the KGB, who is nostalgic for the Soviet Union, the collapse of which he has termed the worst geopolitical disaster of the 20th century. Mr. Putin wants Russia to be a superpower. The problem is it's not even a developed nation anymore. It's not even a developing nation. It has an economy larger than, but only slightly larger than, the economy of Los Angeles County. There's an alcohol problem such that 80% of Russian men drink, and the 80% who drink on average 5 bottles of vodka a week. They have a public health problem worse than sub-Saharan Africa. I mean, it's a collapsing country.
Which
and we're
means that
supposed
what we should be doing is spending a lot of time and effort implementing the Nunn-Lugar proposals to get rid of Soviet nuclear weapons. Because if we do
control
that,
all the materials,
then we don't have to worry about them anymore.
Well, you both are right. And, George, you're absolutely right about Vladimir Putin, the ex-KGB colonel. But if you can see that, why can't George W. Bush see that? It's not just the first meeting. He has, until recently, laid his arms around Vladimir Putin all the way. Maybe his theory is that if I'm nice to this guy, he'll be a good Democrat. Wrong. Putin goes to Israel, and while he's there, an historic visit, for the first time, a Russian leader, he announces he'll sell arms to Syria. This is our friend? This is the great Democrat? No. This is a thug, always has been and always will be, and unless we start being very firm with him, we're going to be complicit.
You say there may be a change in the president. I'm wondering, though, if the rhetorical fireworks this weekend about the past is something of a substitute for confronting him on these other issues where they have real differences right now, on Syria, on Iran, on North Korea.
Well, they're having dinner tonight in Moscow. Let's see what comes out of that. Will the president come out and say, well, we had a nice meal or something? Or will he come out and say, I told Vladimir
some of
Putin
what the
he's gotta
president is
change?
saying about the past is just, speaking vicious truths. Obviously, the Baltic states were occupied, and to parse these words is like, people from my region talking about the war between the states instead of the Civil War. But he didn't, I don't think, have to go as far as attacking President Roosevelt as he was defending the Baltics.
Yeah, President Bush, attacked Yalta and said, in effect, that Roosevelt had given the Soviet Union a blank check, or at least a way to occupy and subjugate all those nations. In fact, Mr. Bush should pay attention to Ronald Reagan, who said in 1984, wrong. It wasn't us that caused this. It was Stalin's breaking his word from the Yalta Agreement. Stalin agreed to free democratic elections in those countries. He broke his word. To blame Roosevelt for this is nonsense.
Who ever thought we'd be back arguing about Yalta?
I certainly would not think so. But thank you all very much. George Will, Sam Donaldson, Cokie Roberts, arguing about Yalta in 2005.
I wasn't there.
Jerry Lewis on his struggle with pain is next, and we'll end our program today with Mother's Day in the military.
It's always hard on the holidays, but the good thing about it is I'm not going through it by myself. There's a lot of other single moms here.
In Thailand, our electronic components link remote villages. In Yuma, vegetables grow faster under our plastics. In Minneapolis, a tiny newborn's pulse is checked by our monitor. At Tyco, we make thousands of products that aren't simply important, they're vital. Tyco, a vital part of your world.
What can an oil company do to gain your trust?
I want them to focus on making our environment cleaner, keeping to the EPA standards, being better than the EPA standards, so that we can all breathe freely and have fresh air. That should be a right.
Of course, everyone has the right to be published, but the odds are against you. Why? Money. A publisher must commit thousands of dollars for an initial...
That's not exactly true.
With on-demand publishing technology, everything's digitized. People can even print one book at a time and forget warehousing. So now everyone here can get published.
Come on. All season long, it's been leading up to this.
Set sail tomorrow.
The final 3 all-new episodes.
My God, what is this thing?
The 3 most spectacular shows of the season.
Over here!
Something's wrong.
The answers you have been waiting for are revealed.
Don't open that thing.
What thing? What do you...
Just don't open it.
An all-new Lost, followed by an all-new Alias, Wednesday starting at 8, 7 Central, only on ABC.
Time now for the list, and we begin with Jerry Lewis. A career of pratfalls came at a price. 37 years of constant pain. Pain that got so bad he nearly took his life. Then he found an answer. Jerry's story is part of our week-long ABC News USA Today series, The Fight Against Pain.
Chronic pain is not like any other malady. It is consistent. It is laborious. It is constant. It doesn't leave you alone. It is the #1 reason that we have suicides in this country today. Now, you have to remember that my pain came from more than 70 years of taking falls. And my first fall I took, I was 5 years old. I never stopped falling since. I fell 2,000 times on my spine, on my back, the very place that I shattered. I was hooked on Percodan. In 1965, they gave me 1 Percodan that took me through the day. And by 78, I was taking 13 a day, 15 a day. The addiction is devastating because you're not even clear anymore why you're taking it. I had already discussed a variety of options, one of which was to kill myself. And when I got to that morning, I had it. I never thought about the love I have for my wife or the love I have for my daughter. I mean, they weren't even in my mind. When I took a 9mm Beretta, put it on the table in my dressing quarters. I have a battery under my skin. This is the programmer. So, I press this on button here, as I do now. Do you hear that? Little ping? And I'm stimulating. And I don't have any pain. It also opens my garage door. God bless America.
He still got it. The fight against pain continues all week on ABC. And now, the Sunday Funnies.
Today, Vice President Dick Cheney said, he actually described Al-Qaeda as wounded, off balance, and on the run. No, I'm sorry, that's...
Tonight we focus, if we would, on the bizarro United States. It's a place where conservatives are powerless and emasculated, and liberals rule the day. It's a land known as England. And they're having an election. Blair's wide lead in the polls comes despite lingering public mistrust over his pro-war stance.
Well, I've never told a lie, no. I don't intend to go telling lies to people. I did not lie over Iraq. I've made that very clear to people.
I'm not saying he's defensive, but the question was boxers or briefs.
I'll be right back.
This week's The List, brought to you by Cisco, changing the way people work, live, play, and learn. Innovation powered by Cisco.
Hello, Chicago.
Konnichiwa.
Oh, now I can see you.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Konnichiwa.
Oh, no.
Ron.
What's the problem? We lost Tokyo.
Can you hear?
We see you, now we can't hear you.
How do we do this?
With this.
But that's a phone.
It's a phone, it's the web, it's a video conference. Ed, stop hitting the TV.
Konnichiwa.
Productivity, powered by Cisco.
It is not an abstract concept. It is not a financial instrument. Energy is a concrete thing, created by real people for real businesses. Energy is Constellation Energy, and we are ready to show you some very real results.
I want to sail the Pacific.
I want the best for my family.
I want my son to have my business.
We want to ride across the country.
Get what you want with the power of the pyramid. Transamerica's experts offer tailor-made insurance, investment, and retirement solutions to help you achieve anything you want.
I just want my son to get a haircut.
Well, almost anything. Transamerica, the power of the pyramid.
Escalade, EXT, and the larger ESB. Seeing is believing. Breakthrough. Visit your Cadillac dealer for an attractive Escalade offer and join the Hot Button event. A blind cop
What is this, South Shakedown, Sonny?
in too deep
You're blind. Yeah.
with no way out.
The deal went bad. It was a setup.
Where are you?
I don't know where I am. Hello?
All new Blind Justice, Tuesday, 10/9 Central, only on ABC.
Can anybody hear me?
Do you or a family member suffer from pain? Monday, World News Tonight brings you cutting-edge relief from a one-of-a-kind pain clinic. See what they know about treating pain that could help you right now. The Fight Against Pain. Our special series starts Monday on World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
And others continued to try to harass me that way, I was going to show that Peter Ordino was going to be fair, was going to be just, was going to be honorable, and obey the Constitution.
Of the American people, and the policymakers, in government and education, Negro children are clearly expendable.
I'm sure we're going to meet some other creatures out here, hopefully long before we meet the whalers themselves. They're stopped at the moment. We'll see what happens from here.
This week, the Pentagon released the names of 20 soldiers and Marines killed in Iraq. I'll be back with a tribute to the moms serving in Iraq.
For you, my sweet. I see you are overcome with love. Or could it be congestion and other seasonal nasal allergy symptoms? Your congestion will not keep us apart.
Only Nasonex is clinically proven to both treat and help prevent most seasonal nasal allergy symptoms, including congestion. Side effects were generally mild and included headache, viral infection, sore throat, nosebleeds, and coughing.
Love means never having to say you are congested.
To treat and help prevent most seasonal nasal allergy symptoms, Nasonex is the one. Talk to your doctor.
Hey, what's the story?
No room.
But this is our place.
No room.
There's a spike in traffic. Scalability issue.
They should add seats or tables or hire more waiters.
Build a bigger kitchen. It's an on-demand world. Why not just add capacity?
Like with our servers?
That's what we would do.
Do you guys ever talk about anything but servers? No.
Expand on demand. IBM eServer X Series with Intel Xeon processors.
Excuse me, do you believe your brokerage firm's advice is objective?
Sure. Their objective is to sell me something.
Well, he only calls me when he's got something to sell.
I made it my objective to do my own investing. So I switched to TD Waterhouse. Best move I ever made.
TD Waterhouse brings together free, independent research and third-party reports so you can make your own objective decisions. You can do this. Switch today to TD Waterhouse, the alternative to higher-priced brokers.
Tonight, on an all-new Extreme Makeover Home Edition. During the day, he saves lives. At night, he's a single father raising 5 kids.
The last thing he's got time to focus on is the house.
Our designers give this deserving dad the biggest surprise of his life. Then tomorrow, see how our team created a home.
We're helping out somebody who saves lives every day.
Spectacular enough.
That's going to be awesome.
For a local hero. Extreme Makeover Home Edition tonight. How'd they do that tomorrow? All new, 8/7 Central, only on ABC.
All season long, it's been leading up to this.
Set sail tomorrow.
The final 3 all-new episodes.
My God, what is this thing?
The 3 most spectacular shows of the season.
Yeah! Over here!
Something's wrong.
The answers you have been waiting for are revealed.
Don't open that thing.
What thing? What do you...
Just don't open it.
An all-new Lost, followed by an all-new Alias, Wednesday starting at 8/7 Central, only on ABC.
We want to end today with a special thanks to all the mothers serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. There's no way to recognize all of them in the way they deserve, but we did find one single mom who's given more than her share. Army Sergeant Joeline Clark. A single mother and intelligence analyst based in Tikrit. Today is Joeline's second Mother's Day away from her 2 boys, Christopher and Michael.
It's always hard on the holidays. But the good thing about it is I'm not going through it by myself. There's a lot of other single moms here, or moms away from their families. And so we get together. We pull together during times like this.
Family pictures help a little, too.
I call it my inspiration wall or my motivational wall. When things are going bad or we hear bad news about, soldiers on the ground, I look to my motivation wall and my inspiration wall, and that just helps me keep going. Okay, it was great.
The same is true back home in Brunswick, Georgia. For this Mother's Day, Christopher made a wind chime.
I made it so my mom would know that I like her.
And wrote a poem.
I know a mom who is nice and caring and hardly ever green or mean. Mother's Day means for me caring, showing that you care about your mom, and treating her special. This mom is very funny, and I'm happy and glad this mom is mine.
And we're glad you got to read that poem to your mom on Mother's Day. Thanks for sharing part of this Sunday with us. Until next week, that's This Week.
A transcript of This Week with George Stephanopoulos or any other ABC News program, call 1-818-848-6500 or visit www.transcripts.tv.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Shaq calls him Flash. He can dish and dunk, and he can knock down the 3. But Dwayne Wade's most valuable talent is that he's happy being the big guy's number 2. The NBA playoffs, Wizards...